We've been sold a lie that a successful, high-performing life is a non-stop montage of adrenaline, flashy breakthroughs, and hustle culture highlights. But if you were to actually step into the shoes of the world's most effective people, you wouldn't see a movie. You'd see a series of incredibly repetitive, almost painfully mundane tasks. The truth that nobody wants to admit is that excellence is rarely exciting. It is usually very, very boring. For a long time, I chased the big changes, the secret hacks, and the overnight transformations, only to find myself burnt out and standing in the same place. It wasn't until I surrendered to the boring stuff, the tasks that most people ignore because they aren't Instagrammable, that my life actually started to move. Today, I want to take you through the 5 super boring things I do every single day that have done more for my mental clarity, my health, and my career than any life hack ever could. The first boring thing happens within 3 minutes of me opening my eyes. I make my bed. I know, it sounds like something your parents nagged you about when you were 10, and it seems entirely inconsequential in the grand scheme of a busy workday. But psychologically, this is about the first win. When you make your bed, you have successfully completed the first task of the day. You have taken a chaotic environment and imposed order upon it. It sets a subconscious tone that you are a person who executes, a person who cares about the details, and a person who can manage their own 6-6 square of the world. When I return to my room at the end of a stressful day, I'm not greeted by a mess that reminds me of my unfinished business. I'm greeted by proof that I started my day with discipline. It is a tiny, boring anchor that keeps my mindset steady before the world has a chance to throw me off balance. Right after that, I do the second boring task. I drink 500 mils of plain, lukewarm water while standing by a window. I don't check my phone. I don't turn on the TV. I just stand there and hydrate. Most of us spend our mornings wilting, like a plant that hasn't been watered in days, yet we wonder why we have brain fog or afternoon slumps. By rehydrating immediately and getting natural light into my eyes, I'm telling my biological clock to wake up. There's no dopamine hit here, no excitement, just basic biological maintenance. But this simple act of boring hydration flushes out toxins and fires up my metabolism. It's the difference between starting my car with a half-dead battery versus a full charge. We often look for complex solutions to our fatigue, but 90% of the time, the solution is just as boring as a glass of water and 5 minutes of sunlight. The third habit is perhaps the most difficult in our hyper-connected world. I spend the first 90 minutes of my workday on deep work with zero notifications. This is the ultimate boring productivity secret. While everyone else is busy reacting, answering emails, checking Slack, scrolling through feeds, I am doing the heavy lifting. I pick one task, usually the one I've been procrastinating on because it's hard, and I sit with it. It's quiet, it's slow, and honestly, it's often frustrating. There are no pings to give me a quick hit of dopamine. But this boring focus is where the 1% results come from. Most people can only focus for 10 minutes before needing a distraction. By training my brain to tolerate the boredom of a singular, difficult task, I am developing a competitive advantage that is becoming increasingly rare in the modern economy. Later in the afternoon, when the mental fatigue starts to set in, I do the fourth boring thing. I go for a 30-minute walk without my headphones. In a world where we are constantly consuming podcasts, music, audiobooks, choosing to walk in silence feels almost radical. It's boring because there is no external stimulation. But this is actually a mental shower. When you remove the input, your brain finally has the space to process the output. This is when my best ideas happen, when the knots in my head finally start to untie themselves. I'm not doing anything. I'm just moving my body and letting my thoughts drift. We think we need more information to solve our problems, but what we actually need is more space. This mundane walk is the pressure release valve for my stress, and it's the reason I rarely feel truly overwhelmed. Finally, the fifth boring habit happens right before I go to sleep. I write down my top 3 for tomorrow. I spend 5 minutes looking at my calendar and deciding exactly what needs to happen the next day. It's a simple list on a scrap of paper. There's no fancy app or complex system involved. But by doing this, I am closing the tabs in my brain. I don't go to bed worrying about what I might forget. I've already offloaded that data onto the paper. It allows me to sleep deeply because my subconscious knows there is a plan. Most people wake up and let the day happen to them. I spend 5 boring minutes at night making sure I happen to the day. If you look at these 5 things, making a bed, drinking water, working in silence, walking without music, and writing a list, They are completely unexciting. They don't require a high IQ, a lot of money, or special talent. They just require the willingness to be bored. We are so addicted to the new and the exciting that we overlook the effective. But success isn't built on the back of a few massive moments. It's built on the accumulation of these tiny, boring, invisible habits. If you want a life that is extraordinary, you have to stop running away from the ordinary. Start doing the boring stuff, and I promise you, the results will be anything but.